Hello and welcome to day 21 of the Azure Advent Calendar. Today I'm going to talk about Azure IoT. My name's Julian Sharp and I'm a specialist in Dynamics 365, but most of my job involves integration with other systems, and as a result I've been using Azure for a number of years. A particular focus of mine has been field service, and with that is connected field service, and that's how I've got interested in IoT. And I really want to try and explain and help you get started with IoT through this session. We're going to be looking at the different parts of the Azure IoT platforms. We'll look at the different solutions available. I'm going to start off looking at platform as a service, then look at accelerators, but I'm really going to be focusing on the IoT Central Software as a Service solution. So it's really a few slides, a couple of demos, and let's get going. When we look at IoT, so we started with IoT, it looks very daunting because you've got all these different services. Everything in orange or that's shown on this screen is part of the IoT set of services. But often when you start with IoT, it's not just those IoT services you have to get to grips with. There's all the other things which we use. We often use IoT alongside storage and analytics, and also you need to be able to graph it out with Power BI. So there's also always a lot of different components to stitch together and understand, which makes it very daunting. What Microsoft's done, we have a couple of SaaS solutions. I've already mentioned Dynamics 365 Connected Field Service. It hooks into the IoT Hub to manage devices from within Dynamics 365, which is where I started. But more and more I've concentrated more on IoT Central, software as a service solution. So it sort of brings all these PaaS services together into a nice, easy to use package. But let's just discuss some of the IoT services, and just so you understand what they do, it'll help you get started. I mean, the core is the IoT Hub. The IoT Hub is the service that connects to your devices. It handles the communication to and from those devices. So you can access and manage your device with the IoT Hub. It's also the underlying system for both IoT Central and the IoT Solution Accelerator I'm going to mention later. You can add devices one by one into the IoT Hub, and you can use the CLI to add them one by one. But when you get into production environments, you're talking in large scale deployments, you need to use a thing called the Device Provisioning Service. DPS will handle the deployments and integrates in with the IoT Hub. IoT Edge, this is where it starts getting very interesting, because often IoT devices are in areas where they do not have direct connectivity with the internet, or they're in difficult areas such as factories where there may not be good Wi-Fi signals. So one of the things we often do is we'll run IoT logic or IoT processing on a device locally or remotely. And then the IoT Edge device communicates with the IoT Hub only when it's necessary to do so, when it's got, say, an anomaly detection. One of the nice things about IoT Edge is you can actually deploy AI or machine learning to it. We often talk about using containers or deploy a container, so we can run an IoT Edge on Windows 10 IoT, or maybe even a Raspberry Pi, for instance, and it can handle local processing and it reduces the amount of network traffic, so it can reduce costs. Now, IoT, just collecting data is pretty useless. You need to analyze it. One of the things that's really important within IoT when you start getting into it is a thing called stream analytics. So stream analytics is about looking at data in real time, almost real time, looking at data as it's coming, because you need to real time monitor your systems, because data and insights are perishable. The data you may miss something. You need to act on it straight away. You can't necessarily analyze it after the effect. So we often use IoT stream analytics used in lots of different places, but we're looking at IoT, looking at streaming, looking at monitoring and analyzing. And what we can do is run little queries on it as the data comes in, so we can sort of get into the underlying data. We can when something happens, when our data maybe trips the threshold, we can generate actions, which we can call from, we can initiate actions which could be Azure functions or logic apps or anything you really want to do. And it's quite easy to use once you get the hang of it. I think Charlotte is a little bit tricky. And it's a SQL-like or T-SQL-like language. You do a select statement from your stream of data, and then you can analyze telemetry values and see if it's over a particular value. But what gets really good in this, you can start applying machine learning to it. Now, Microsoft has actually included some machine learning into Stream Analytics, so they've built in some machine learning, some anomaly detection, such as spikes and dips. They're now standard machine learning, but you can build your own anomaly detection in, because you can always call Azure functions to do whatever you like. So it's very, very flexible, very, very powerful. Another part of the IoT services is time series insights, which allow us to look at data over time, to look at trends. It allows us to enrich the data, pulling data from lots of different places, and it's quite visual in its interpretation. One of the things you'll find very soon if you do IoT PaaS is, yes, how do I get my visualizations? How do I see it in real time? Or maybe able to do my analytics. And Time Series Insights is just one of the tools. We have Power BI and other things available to us. One of the things that help you get started with IoT is hardware. Hardware in IoT is always difficult. We're really still in early days of IoT, where there are differences. Every single device needs to be different, with different properties and different setups and different operating systems and different SDKs. So what we have is a few easy devices that we can use with Azure IoT. They work. There's documentation for them. The one I'm going to be using in this demo is the MX chip, also known as the AZ3166, which is a little single board with 7 or 8 sensors on it, which can hook very easily into IoT Hub and IoT Central. There's also a text mode button. I've got one, though I've never managed to get it to work. The Raspberry Pi is very, very useful. A little bit more flexible, a little more powerful than the MX chip, because you start running Windows IoT Core on it, and also start running local IoT Edge containers on it as well. So it's a lot more flexible. And you've also got a lot more sensors, a lot more capabilities with the Raspberry Pi. So that's a little diagram of what the MX chip looks like, and we'll see that in operation in a little bit. There's also IoT Sphere. This is a highly secure bit of hardware device that Microsoft has championed. The developer kit's now available. I've just got one. It's going to be my little Christmas experiment time. Then there's the IoT Workbench, which is an added Visual Studio Code, allows you to build and deploy your projects in Azure. So you can just start off and download the source code for the MX chip or for Raspberry Pi, and also the flick button, which is very, very nice if you want to play with that. It's very, very easy to use in IoT Workbench and build your own code. Now there's one tool which I'm going to show you, which is the Device Explorer. One thing that's very hard to see is what's actually going on with your messages, and a little tool I use a lot is the Azure Device Explorer. I think it's being replaced by the IoT Explorer, but it allows me to monitor what messages are being sent between my device and my IoT Hub. So with that, let's have a little demo. What I've got deployed, I've just got a little IoT Hub deployed. I've installed the free version, the basic version. That allows me 8,000 messages a day. It doesn't cost me anything. And at the moment, what I've got, if I dive into the IoT Hub, we'll just have a look at it, and I'll scroll down and have a look at devices. And we'll see I've got one device running my little MX chip. And what I'm going to show you is the MX chip. It's now connected. It's now sending messages. But you can't really see those messages within the IoT Hub. I have a little bit. I can sort of run a query and see what's going on. One thing I recommend people use is the Device Explorer tool. And all I've done is put in the IoT connection string and set up. And I can see in here I've got my one device. And if I click on data, we can actually see the messages coming in I'm getting telemetry and humidity information. The temperature is showing at 26 degrees and is just, it's now going up 29 degrees. That's because I'm holding it, putting my finger on the temperature sensor. So we'll see the temperature go up and rise, and should go up a little bit more as we're doing it, just to see what's going on. Yeah, so now the temperature's sort of steady at 29 degrees. Now I will say the MX chip isn't the most accurate of devices. I wouldn't be using it for real time or real projects, but it's a nice little tool or little unit to be able to experiment with IoT at fairly low cost. It costs about $35 plus postage. I'm going to give you a link to where you can find it later on. But it's a great way of looking what's going on my device. And we can see it's sending messages. It's just connected via Wi-Fi, sending messages to my hub. So sending messages every 1 or 2 seconds. But to be honest, it's not very useful, is it, like this? I can't really. I'm going to have to do a lot of work now to go and display this data. I'm going to have to install Power BI, store the data. At the moment, the data is not being stored anywhere. It's just going in. It's disappearing. I'll need to store it into maybe blob storage or into SQL Server or into Cosmos DB, and then start manipulating it. I'll probably have to add other services such as Service Bus and other things to sort of make it all useful and actually create a solution that I can use to alert me. So this is great, and it's nice to play with, but it's very, as I say, it's very, very daunting. So what Microsoft has created is a thing called the IoT Solution Accelerators. They are some pre-built PaaS deployments based on the IoT reference architecture. I'm going to give you a link to that later. They've got a number of different scenarios such as remote monitoring, predictive maintenance. And you can start with those. It gets you all set up. It'll install all those complex scenarios for you. If you've got Dynamics 365 field service, you can also install the connected field service solution, which does a similar template and PaaS deployment of IoT Hub and Stream Analytics and Logic Apps, for instance. What I really want to talk to you about today is IoT Central. This is a software as a service solution. So this is a pre-packaged separate application built on top of the IoT PaaS services. And the great thing about this is you don't really need to know much about Azure or much about IoT to get started, because it hides a lot of the complexity for you. It also gives us straightforward simulated devices. I can get going within a few minutes with IoT Central. If you've not got Azure, there's a free 7-day trial. If you have got Azure, you've got it free for your first 5 devices. It doesn't cost you anything to use. Whereas if you start using the IoT PaaS things, you can very easily burn through your $100 a month allowance. If you've got MSDN, it'll be gone within a couple of weeks. Whereas IoT Central is pretty much free for experimentation. And it also has built-in graphical representation. I've got my own analytics built in. I don't need to do anything else, but we have some ability to get the data out and do more with it if we want. So what is it? IoT Central. It's a collection of applications. You go and create an application. Your first application is free. So I've chosen the sample dev kits, which includes those IoT dev kits, the MX chip, Raspberry Pi, and Windows IoT Core are all supported as part of the sample dev kits, which makes it, if you've got one of those devices, it makes it really, really easy to start. And what we have is a number of device templates. So when I choose the sample dev kits, I get the device templates already set up. It knows about all the properties of those devices. Otherwise, you've got to create your own device templates, and you need to know exactly what the telemetry messages are like. And with IoT, you'll soon find out that temperature is sometimes known as temp or temperature, sometimes with an uppercase T, sometimes with a lowercase t, and all this matters. So you have to discover what messages are being sent, what telemetry is being sent to build your template. You also need to know what the device expects in terms of control. Can I do control? Can I send messages to it or not? And again, how are those formatted? What are the properties needed? Typically, this is all in JSON, so you'll need to have a little bit of knowledge of IT. So I say always try with the sample dev kits first. It takes a lot of the difficulty away. It also comes with simulated devices. Each of my templates comes with a simulated device, so you can start playing or using IoT Central without actually a real physical device. And you can get going. It generates random data for you. It's very easy to add real devices. It gives you all the information you need to set them up with in terms of, and takes away a lot of the complexity of setting up devices. And it also allows you to run jobs to do various activities, including exporting of data, which I'm going to get onto in a bit. When you set up your device or your device template, you can also specify rules. And this is where it starts getting interesting, because with rules, I can effectively trigger actions based on telemetry or events. And so, for instance, my temperature is greater than 80 degrees, or I've pressed a button, or something else has happened again, that's device dependent, what events and telemetry they send back. So again, when you set up your template, you need to define the telemetry and events. Then what's really nice, I can then run a number of different actions. I can send an email, which yes, I can alert somebody my temperature's rising. But we've got the ability to hook into lots of other services such as Azure Functions and Azure Logic Apps, and what I particularly like, Microsoft Flow. So when you've got into those scenarios, you can effectively do anything. Then we've got Azure Functions. So again, I can essentially trigger something and do anything I like, including sending messages back, integrating with other systems. We've got the webhook integration, so any REST API is available to us. And it's very easy just to create them. You just effectively set up my rule, define the conditions for it. We've got what's your rolling time window, and then which actions do I want. I could have one or more actions. So here's a little link to how to connect those dev kits. So either Raspberry Pi, it supports both Python and C#. I will say when I've set up the C# one, I think I spent a whole day downloading all the updates to the Azure SDK and getting all the packages deployed just to get a working solution. So don't underestimate the time for that. It's a lot easier with the Windows IoT Core, and also I say the MX chip is the one I'm going to use. One of the problems always with SaaS services is you can't get at the underlying platform. I mean, that's what a software as a service solution does. And sometimes you can't get at the data. And for the first few months with IoT Central, it was pretty much a closed box. But what they've done is they've given us the ability to export the data. And we can send the devices and the telemetry data to blob storage, or so we can then use it for analysing later. Such as the Power BI solution, the pre-built Power BI solution, which looks at that data from blob storage, uses Azure Data Factory to create a nice set of Power BI charts. But we can also send the data to event hubs, and that opens up and the service bus, and both of those open up a vast amount of capability to do my own work on the data. I can start applying my own stream analytics if I want, or using Azure Functions or my own machine learning on top of it. And this all, as for me, opens up IoT Central to be much more than just a little way of just monitoring some devices in real time. The fact we can now do more automation with the rules, but I can actually, those rules are a bit limited because they're basically about telemetry. But I might want to say, let's look at trend analysis or other things, and I can use those data export services to do more than just simple rules. So let's do a little IoT Central demo. So this is what IoT Central looks like. I've been in and I've created an application, and I selected the sample dev kit. So we can see here it's giving me a nice little dashboard showing me Raspberry Pi, my MX chip, and my Windows IoT Core. And what I can do is I can go look at my devices, and I go see now, and I've just got one device connected at the moment, which is a real device, which is sat next to me, currently going and getting some data. We can see what's actually happening with it in real time. I can see a number of different pieces of information about it. So I'm looking at its temperature and humidity, and I'm also looking if it's pressing buttons. So I'm going to see, we'll see hopefully in a few minutes this react. I do have my own analytics. I can do my own queries on it, and we can see, yes, see my data over particular time periods. So I can go and drill down and have the ability to say, okay, I want to look at over say last 10 minutes or last hour. And we can see the different results coming in. We can see we had little spikes and other bits of information coming in. And we've got the ability to go and create jobs to form updates on properties or send messages to devices. I mentioned we had this device export where it's very easy for me just to export my data to Azure Blob Storage or to an event hub. I quickly just here go connect it. All I need is the connection string. So this isn't limited now to just my own Azure tenant. It could be any other Azure tenant that I can connect to. And it dumps the data, say JSON or Avro, and then I can analyze it. I can specify what I'm putting out. But it could just be measurements or measurements in devices. Essentially, I get a file every minute in JSON, and so I can then ingest into some other service for analyzing. So we look at our data, and it's not moving that quickly, but we should see some data going forward. Oh yes, we're now seeing it react, and we now see I've pressed the button. Let me have a quick look at the rules. If I go into my templates, very, very simple to look at the rules. Yeah. And all I would do in IOT Central is say I want to create a new rule. And I can base it on a telemetry or event. So let's book a little bit of telemetry. I can say my demo rule. And all I'm going to do is specify conditions. And I've got access to all my telemetry information. So I can say maybe when the pressure, and it's going to show me the current value. So I'm going to show my pressure. Well, maybe let's choose something else. My magnometer, my X reading is showing that. And I can then specify a period of time I want to do. So average time period is, say, is greater than, so what's it showing at the moment? Greater than 0. So I can put something in and then over maybe a time period. And then I can do various different actions on it. So my actions here, just click on this and I can now go send an email, run a webhook or Azure function, Azure Logic app, or now got Azure Monitor groups. Okay, so some notifications to Azure Monitor. That's a new one that's appeared. And also run Microsoft Flow. And I can go then, I can then integrate with hundreds of other services, both Microsoft and non-Microsoft. But it's very, very easy for me to do this. Now, so have a look at my magnometer and we'll see I can easily change the value. I'm just holding a magnet over this device and we'll see it'll spike and change as we turn the magnet around. And we'll see that data. So one thing I really like about IOT Central, so the other thing I was going to quickly just demo to you is sending a message. So I can just go here and say properties and I can send a message back to my device. So from here I can now go and say happy so I can do this, and I'm just going to show this on the screen hopefully, and we should see in a minute when I run this we'll see a message being sent and the message appear on the little LCD screen, which you'll be able to see that message sent. So let's check that one. Yeah, so message will be there, and so this is just showing you I can do some very, very powerful things with this, and I can actually send these commands automatically through the rules, through using Microsoft Flow, etc. So you can get some very nice ability to control your devices remotely with IOT Central without having to do lots of work. So I've literally set up IOT Central this morning. It took me about 10 minutes to set the device up and set the rules up, whereas setting up the IoT Hub and getting the device connected to it did take me significantly longer, several hours, and I've done it quite a few times now, and I haven't really done that much apart from setting up the IoT Hub. Now, IoT Central is great, but what we miss is the flexibility of being able to do what we want, our own machine learning, our own time series analysis. And yes, we now have the capability with IOT Central to export the data and start using it, but it's a little bit hard. We've got to go through an extra step. So IOT Central is great. It's really good. It enables to quickly deploy. I don't need to know as much about, say, Stream Analytics. I think Stream Analytics is probably one of the hardest things. Understanding how the T-SQL works and actually how to generate an action is pretty difficult compared to IOT Central. Building that rule was a few clicks and points and just selecting a few things. And also costing. When you start getting into IoT, how much is this going to cost? With the PaaS solution, it can be quite difficult, especially Stream Analytics can cost a lot of money because it runs all the time, and so even if you're not getting messages through, you're still paying for it. And then you also pay for all the messages and data in ingress. You also maybe paying for every time a function or a logic app runs. So again, it's very hard to estimate the cost. Whereas with IOT Central, we've got very clear, simple pricing. It's around $500 per application, and it says it's free for your first 5 devices if you've got you've already got an Azure subscription. So what I recommend for you, if you're looking at IoT, I would recommend you start with IoT Central, because it's very simple to get started. You'll learn more about how it works, and then you can always go and switch to the PaaS solution as you need to. And in terms of production system, I think IoT Central is good enough for a lot of remote monitoring solutions where you just need to remotely monitor and alert. If you haven't, as long as you've not got hundreds of thousands of devices. But it's pretty good for setting up those and monitoring and the alerting with the simple rules. It's great for. Here are some resources. One I'm really going to point you is the IoT show. There's recordings. There's regular talks about different parts of Azure IoT. And the IoT school if you want to learn more. Now, so thank you for listening. If there's one thing I want you to come out of this is how easy it is to get started with Azure IoT, and it's not that as daunting as it first seems. So have a good Christmas.